Two of the world's biggest aircraft, giants of steel and fire, unknowingly share one single strip of concrete. Fog swallows the runway whole. Lights vanish. Shadows distort. Silence tightens like a noose. They cannot see each other. They cannot hear each other. And in this blinding white void, time is running out. The engines roar louder. The ground vibrates. The fog thickens into pure blindness. In 8 seconds, just 8 heartbeats, the deadliest aviation disaster in human history will ignite. A pause, a breath, a cold echo of fate. Not in the skies where danger is expected, but down here on the ground, where no one ever imagined death could come this fast. Everything began quietly, almost peacefully. Pan AM Flight 1736 rose from the warm glow of the Los Angeles sun, its massive wings carving through clear blue skies. Inside, hundreds of passengers settled in for a long journey. Older couples smiling about the cruise waiting for them, families flipping through travel brochures, and friends whispering excitedly about beaches, warm winds, and the turquoise waters of the Canary Islands. It was a flight full of laughter, of plans, of dreams, that a plane carrying hope toward a vacation paradise. While across Europe, over 8,000 kilometers away, another giant prepared for the same destination. In Amsterdam, KLM Flight 4805 stood tall on the tarmac, gleaming under a cold, gray Dutch sky. Ground crews hurried around it, fueling it, loading luggage, checking systems. Its passengers, 233 in number, carried the same anticipation, the same excitement, the same innocent expectations. 2 flights point 2 cultures point 2 worlds apart, yet both headed for the same island, the same airport, and, unknowingly, the same catastrophic moment in history. At this point, nothing seemed unusual. Pan AM cruised high over the Atlantic, steady and smooth. KLM climbed into the clouds on schedule, guided by one of the most respected captains in aviation. The cruise, the day looked normal. To the passengers, it looked perfect. The world, it was just another busy day in the age of travel. But behind the calm skies, behind the peaceful hum of engines, destiny had already taken its first step, quietly, slowly, deliberately. A chain of events, random to the eye, but lethal in combination, was already moving. A single bomb placed in the wrong airport, a diversion order that seemed routine, a patch of fog that drifted at the worst possible moment. Each piece sliding silently into place, and no one on either aircraft. Neither the experienced captains nor the smiling passengers had any idea that forces beyond their control were aligning with deadly precision. The calmest of beginnings was preparing too. At Las Palmas Airport, the afternoon began like any other. Tourists moving in and out of shops, sunlight spilling across tiled floors, and the quiet hum of a busy terminal echoing off the glass walls. But at 1 p.m., 2 men walked calmly through the crowd, paused near a small flower shop, and set down an ordinary-looking bag. They didn't linger. They didn't run. They simply vanished into the sea of travelers, leaving behind an object that held a deadly secret. Inside that bag was a bomb, armed with a countdown timer that had already begun ticking toward catastrophe. 15 minutes later, the airport received a chilling phone call. A cold, emotionless voice delivered a simple message. Evacuate. A bomb will explode in 15 minutes. Panic swept through the terminal. Loudspeakers blared warnings, staff shouted directions, and thousands of passengers rushed toward the exits, their footsteps blending into a single desperate roar. The evacuation was chaotic, but it was fast. And just as the warning promised, the moment the 15th minute passed, the airport shook with a violent explosion. A deafening blast ripped through the building, shattering glass, tearing through walls, and sending thick smoke rolling into the sky. The once busy terminal was now a scene of destruction. Las Palmas Airport was immediately shut down, its runways closed, its incoming flights redirected. But there was only one secondary airport close enough to handle the sudden chaos. Tenerife, a smaller, fog-prone airport perched between the mountains. Every diverted aircraft was instructed to head there, whether the airport had space or not. Among those aircraft were two of the largest, heaviest, and most powerful commercial jets in the world: Pan Am Flight 1736 and KLM Flight 4805. Two Boeing 747s, rerouted by a bomb they never saw, now forced into the cramped limits of a tiny island airport that was never designed to handle such traffic. And with their arrival, a chain reaction had begun. Tenerife's Los Rodeos Airport was never meant to carry the weight of an entire region's air traffic. Nestled high in the mountains, surrounded by steep ridges and unpredictable weather, it operated more like a regional stop than an international hub. Its layout was painfully simple: one runway, one taxiway, and a small apron squeeze between airport buildings. On a normal day, it worked. On a day like this, with diverting flights pouring in non-stop, it became a pressure cooker waiting to explode. As aircraft rerouted from Las Palmas began to land one after another, the airport descended into a kind of organized chaos. Jetliners packed the apron like puzzle pieces forced too tightly together. Ground crews scrambled to guide pilots into whatever tiny spaces remained. Taxiways clogged with metal giants lined wing to wing. Engines roared, brakes hissed, and radios crackled with constant instructions as the once quiet mountain airport struggled under the sudden weight of dozens of unexpected arrivals. Into this overcrowded maze rolled KLM Flight 4805, a massive 747 that needed space, fuel, and time. After parking, the KLM captain made a decision that would become a pivotal link in the chain. He chose to completely refuel the aircraft right there at Tenerife. It seemed harmless, practical even, but that decision forced the enormous jet to stay parked on the narrow taxiway, blocking it entirely. No aircraft could pass behind it. No aircraft in front could move. It became a wall of steel that trapped every plane on the apron, including Pan Am 1736. Pan Am's aircraft sat stuck, unable to taxi, waiting for KLM to finish refueling. Minutes turned into frustration. Frustration turned into congestion. Tenerife Airport, never designed to hold this many flights, now found itself gridlocked. And just as the situation reached its peak, nature made its move. From the distant Atlantic coast, fog began to form, slow at first, then faster, rolling across the open ocean like a thick, white tide. Tenerife was known for its sudden fog banks, but no one expected one this dense, this heavy, this blinding. It crept up the runway like a ghost, swallowed the taxiway, and then consumed the airport whole. Visibility collapsed within minutes, first to 800 meters, then 500, then barely 300. Eventually, the horizon dissolved. The runway lights blurred. Aircraft that had been clearly visible moments before now faded into pale silhouettes, then vanished entirely. The control tower was blind. The pilots were blind. The ground crew were blind. Yet there were still dozens of planes, all trying to move, on an airport built for only a few. With the taxiway blocked by KLM's refueling, air traffic control issued a desperate workaround. Both aircraft, Pan Am and KLM, would have to taxi on the runway itself. One runway, two jumbo jets, fog thick enough to erase the world. A perfect trap, quiet, invisible, and lethal. As the fog tightened its grip on Tenerife, the airport's single runway transformed from a strip of concrete into a blind, uncertain path. KLM 4805 had completed its refueling at last and began to taxi straight down the runway toward the far end, instructed by the tower to perform a full 180-degree turn so it could position for takeoff. It was an unusual procedure, but under the circumstances, blocked taxiway, overcrowded apron, and a suffocating fog, it was the only option left. Moments later, Pan Am 1736 was ordered to follow the same runway, trailing behind KLM, but to exit through taxiway C3. Yet C3 was poorly marked, almost invisible, and swallowed by the fog. The Pan Am crew searched desperately for it, scanning the blurry glow of runway lights, but they never found it. Unknowingly, The two largest commercial aircraft in the world were now on the same runway. While KLM sat at the very end preparing for takeoff, Pan Am was still taxiing slowly down the center line, lost inside a white abyss. The control tower could not see either aircraft. The pilots could not see beyond the length of their own aircraft. Radar was not available at Los Rodeos Airport. Every movement, every instruction, every life depended solely on radio communication. Radio communication that was about to fail them at the worst possible moment. Inside the KLM cockpit, tension was rising. The captain, an instructor, a man respected worldwide, was aware that duty time limitations were closing in. If they waited too long, regulations would force the crew to rest, delaying the flight until the next day. The combination of fatigue, weather, and pressure began to chip away at judgment. Small thoughts turned into impatience. Impatience turned into assumptions. And in aviation, assumptions are far more dangerous than storms. KLM called the tower, asking for takeoff clearance. The tower responded with departure instructions, telling the crew which route to follow after takeoff. But crucially, they did not say the words "cleared for takeoff." These were two different messages, but in the foggy stress of the moment, they blurred into one. The KLM captain believed he had been cleared. Then he spoke the ambiguous, fatal phrase. "We are at takeoff." Or perhaps, "We are taking off." The recording was never fully clear. But both phrases sound dangerously similar on noisy radio. And both were dangerously misunderstood. The tower, hearing this, responded with, "Ugh." But the controller continued speaking, trying to make himself absolutely clear. "Stand by for takeoff. I will call you." That sentence would have saved 583 lives. But it never reached the KLM cockpit. At that exact moment, Pan Am's first officer transmitted their own message. "We're still on the runway." The two messages collided on a single radio frequency. Signals overlapped. Voices merged into static. A critical warning was lost inside a wall of noise. In the KLM cockpit, all the crew heard was a burst of distortion, nothing understandable, nothing to stop them. Despite a final moment of doubt from the KLM flight engineer, who asked about Pan Am's position, the captain insisted everything was clear. Then he pushed the throttles forward, and in that single action, born of confusion, pressure, fog, and a broken chain of communication, the disaster was set in motion. Two 747s were now moving toward each other in total blindness, one accelerating to takeoff speed, the other unknowingly blocking its path. Human error had taken control, and fate followed closely behind. The runway was silent in a way that didn't feel natural. The fog had thickened into a living wall, swallowing sound and sight. Its white curtain hung motionless, hiding everything beyond a few meters. To the Pan Am crew taxiing unknowingly down the runway, it felt like flying through clouds on the ground, an impossible illusion. To the KLM crew at the far end, it felt like nothing existed except the glowing instruments inside their cockpit. They couldn't see the runway. They couldn't see the world outside. There was no horizon, no motion, just fog, and their belief that the path ahead was clear. Then the engines roared. KLM 4805 surged forward with the force of a charging beast. The massive 747 shook violently as power built inside its four engines. Spray from the wet runway blasted behind it. The aircraft gained speed quickly. 40 knots, then 80, then 100, its enormous weight slicing through the fog like a silent knife. Inside the cockpit, the captain focused ahead into a wall of white nothingness, trusting only his instruments and the assumption that the runway was empty. But it wasn't. Far ahead, hidden behind the impenetrable fog, Pan Am 1736 was still crawling down the same runway, its crew unaware that death was racing toward them. Inside their cockpit, radio static had given them a sense of unease. The crew strained their eyes through the fog, searching for exit C3, searching for any sign of another aircraft. But fog was cruel. It offered no warning, no hint, no mercy. 6 seconds past point 5.4. And then, In the Pan Am cockpit, something changed. Through the milky haze ahead, two bright lights pierced the white curtain. First faint, then growing brighter and brighter, suddenly expanding into the unmistakable glow of landing lights. One of the pilots gasped. Another shouted, "There he is!" The realization hit them like a physical blow. A 747, full power, full weight, was charging directly at them. "Turn! Turn! Turn!" the Pan Am captain yelled, wrenching the aircraft to the left. The jumbo jet responded slowly, too slowly, its massive body sliding across the runway as its wheels fought for grip on the wet surface. In the KLM cockpit, at almost the exact same moment, the flight engineer saw a faint dark shape emerging from the fog and shouted in panic. The captain's instinct took over. With no room left on the runway, he pulled the yoke back, attempting an impossible maneuver, a premature takeoff. The 747's nose lifted too early, too heavy, too slow. The engine screamed under the sudden strain. The aircraft's body trembled violently as it tried to rise above the obstacle looming in the fog. For a split second, the world froze. The KLM's nose gear lifted off the ground. Its front wheels cleared the Pan Am fuselage by mere feet. For a moment, it looked as if the jet might leap over the obstacle ahead. But then reality struck. The right engines, massive, unforgiving, slammed into the upper deck of Pan Am 1736, ripping through metal and structure like paper. A deafening explosion ripped across the fog-covered runway, a torrent of fire, shrapnel, and fuel erupting into the night. The underside of the KLM aircraft tore open from the impact, and with its landing gear destroyed, the giant jet slammed back onto the runway, skidding violently before erupting into an explosive fireball that consumed everything around it. Pan Am felt the hit like a hammer from the sky. The front section disintegrated instantly. Fire raced through the cabin. Steel twisted. Windows shattered. The aircraft split open, flames spilling into the fog like orange rivers that in just 8 seconds. 8 impossible, catastrophic seconds. 2 of the largest aircraft ever built were reduced to burning wreckage on a runway no one could see. The deadliest aviation disaster in history had happened. Not in flight, not in a storm, but right there on the ground, swallowed by fog and silence. When investigators finally sifted through the smoke, wreckage, and heartbreak, the truth behind the disaster emerged with devastating clarity. It wasn't one mistake. It wasn't one failure. It was a chain, forged link by pressure, fatigue, fog, miscommunication, missing signage, human assumptions, and a single radio message lost in static. The black boxes revealed that the KLM crew believed they were cleared for takeoff. While Pan Am was still on the same runway, 0.1 misunderstanding, 0.1 moment of overlap, 0.1 spark in the fog, and 583 lives vanished. But from that tragedy came a transformation. Aviation rewrote its rules. No pilot takes off without hearing the exact words. Cleared for takeoff. Radio phraseology became strict, unbreakable, universal. Ground radar became mandatory. Cockpit authority changed forever through CRM, crew resource management, teaching crews to challenge mistakes, not obey them blindly. Runway markings, lighting, and procedures evolved across the entire world. The skies became safer because of the lives lost that day. And Tenerife's fog-covered runway remains a silent reminder, not of destruction, but of change. A reminder that in aviation, the smallest misheard word can become the loudest disaster. A reminder that safety is written in the memory of those who never made it home. And a reminder that the deadliest tragedy in the history of flight taught the world how to save millions more. Sometimes it takes a moment of darkness to show humanity how to build a brighter sky.